As a bit of an introduction to the day, potentially, it seems that no sooner do I construct something than I need to at least remove it. Yesterday, unexpectedly, the people that were doing the horizontal drilling and putting the conduits in the ground made contact, and they said, we have a gap in the schedule tomorrow and like to come and have another crack at getting that conduit in if we can. And I said, okay. I was a little apprehensive because I thought once the machinery got on that ground, which whilst being partially dry on the surface obviously isn't underneath, that it could end up being a bit of a farce. But anyway, they came, and what follows is the video of that, even though I'm filming this afterwards. But the robust cover that I made for the chasm needed to be removed so that they could get down in there, and so it is now sitting up there. The first job of the day was to dig up the conduit that had come up from down the drive. They needed to do this for two reasons. The first being that it was too near the surface at this top end, and the second being that it was too far away from the boundary. It would have been outside the easement. I had told them that adjacent to the kauri tree there needed to be less than 3 metres from the boundary, and we got out a tape measure and some dazzle and marked it. This of course got lost in amongst the dirt, and then from that point they needed to move closer to the boundary as they both went up the hill and down the hill. I ended up having to revisit this later in the day as the message got lost in the transfer between the team members. Right at this point they are sorting this before the boring machine arrives on the scene. Once the boring machine moved off the concrete path and down onto what was once upon a time grass, it could go downhill, but there was no way it could get enough traction to manoeuvre across or back up the hill. The digger came to the rescue and the boring machine was then able to be pulled to where it needed to be. It was then chained to the digger so that it didn't slide off down the hill when they started the boring process. The foreman, who was in charge of the workers, had organised a big team because he was determined to achieve the goal today. He didn't stay on site once he'd got them going. This was on a Friday, and he told the team before he left that they needn't bother coming back for beers at the end of the day until they had it sorted. It seemed to be some sort of motivation. According to one of the team, the man on the drilling machine today is the most experienced of their team of operators. As part of the banter, it was obvious that he was confident that he could nail it reasonably quickly. Done by lunchtime, I think was the phrase he used. I'll slot in here what the drill bit looks like. I have shown this in a previous video, but I wanted to explain how these work. You can see that basically the end of the bit is shaped like a curved spade that has teeth both at the front and on the sides. The bit is not necessarily rotated very far as it progresses. As you will see a short clip of, the bit is sometimes rotated back and forth a very small amount as it is pushed forward. This is the genius of this machine. They rotate the bit to the side in the direction that they want to go, so it grabs on that side and turns the bit in that direction. I will put a link in the description to a video that shows in much more detail how this all works. It's quite fascinating. Well, at least it was to me anyway. Although I wasn't on site at this point, the video evidence suggests that this is the point at which they successfully made it to the other end. Eureka! The machine operator left the machine briefly, and then the digger was detached from the machine and moved out of the way so that the conduits could be pulled back through to this point. Pulling the conduits through took no time at all. After they were detached from the drill bit, then came the fun part of getting the machine back up onto the path so that it could leave. I arrived back about this point and came down to see where they were up to. Earlier in the day I had shown the digger driver where the stormwater pipe was, in the ground just below the compost bins. Alas, I think he forgot about it and dug it up. I went down to my stores and found a pre-loved piece of pipe and brought that with a joiner, some glue and my reciprocating saw for them to mend the pipe once they had the conduit sorted. The reason they are digging here is because the conduits had come up just below the stormwater pipe and needed to be buried deeper in the ground. You will see that I positioned myself so that I could take some video and photos in case I needed them for the electrician, just to show that all was as it should be. It was then that I noticed that in fact beside the carry tree, the conduits were more than the 3 meters from the boundary. They ended up having to hand dig some of this to move the conduits over to where they needed to be. Once they had the conduits in place, they needed to take some of the soil, clay, back up to the chasm to partly fill it in. I provided the wheelbarrows, they provided the manpower. Not unexpectedly, they used the digger to fill the barrows. Once they had tidied the ground as best they could with the digger, then they set about sweeping the paths and cleaning the clumps of dirt off the drive that the boring machine and the digger left behind as they departed. They seemed pretty happy with their day's work, and I was pleased to have it done, and for the effort they made to clean up after they'd finished. You can see that the men and machines are all gone. The mess is still here, but at least this mess is now covering conduits and other pipes and things that are in the ground, hopefully to stay there. And if I gently walk my way up here, they managed to get the conduit through. Obviously you would have seen the video, they had to dig some of it, but we now have conduits in the hole, and I'm just going to leave the gates over here for now to protect that hole, because the electrician is going to come next week and have a look and then they can pull the cable through, and then it will have to sit until we have the easements organised. It's good progress today, really, to actually get that done. I wasn't expecting them for a number of months, as I said, and so it is nice to have that bit done, and there's nothing now stopping the electrician from coming and pulling the cable through. And then once we have all the easements through their council and legal processes, then we can connect things. So that's progress. See you later. I will have to have a big clean up tomorrow on the paths and things, but small price to pay. Okay, bye. A bit of a prologue here. The skies opened at about 4 AM this morning, and so I came down and I've dug a trench across here to guide the water away from where the slip is, which is down there. And also I thought I need to cover the hole up here, otherwise there is a risk that it will fill up with water, and then the silty water will then go down the conduit. And so I have removed the gates and put a couple of sheets of iron over the hole to stop the worst of the rain filling the hole. There will obviously still be runoff from the path coming down there. Not much I could do about that really, but hopefully this will stop the worst of it. I'm very pleased that we got all this work done yesterday. Bye.